We all know the saying, hindsight is 20/20, right? But what most people don't really think about is that 20 of that is, wow, that was an experience, or I certainly learned a valuable lesson. But the other 20 is, what the heck was I thinking? Or why didn't anyone try to stop me? But guess what? When you're in the thick of life, often you're not thinking. I certainly wasn't thinking, or at least not thinking clearly about what was good for me when I was careening toward my personal rock bottom. People did try to stop me. My friend John, my friend Brian, my Aikido sensei, my parents. I know they did. I remember those conversations vividly. The problem was that in the middle of it, I wasn't ready to listen. In 2010, my first marriage came to an end, partly because we had grown in different directions, but largely because I had been unfaithful 4 years earlier. It was one moment of careless, drunken decision-making, but that one life and soul-shattering act opened the door wide for the next 6 years of making even worse decisions. That single night at the end of 2006, with that one really bad choice, it broke me. It broke me in a fundamental way. It completely destroyed the person I thought I was. And just like with a window or a mirror, once that perfect surface is shattered, you can never put it back together again like it once was. In my mind, I had already shattered the glass of my life. I knew I couldn't get it back, so I just kept on smashing. And little by little, I lost nearly everything, including most of my friends. Once that marriage was finally over and he'd moved out, I doused the already blazing dumpster fire of my life with the highly flammable fuel of diving headlong into free dating apps. Good times. So night and day and night, I was talking to, flirting with, and doing all kinds of unmentionables with men both locally and from coast to coast to coast. That was how I ended up throwing my life, my career, and my credit score into the toilet bowl some of you might know as Texas. Woo. All right, so it all started with a casual ping on some dating app. This guy was attractive, funny, outgoing, and interested for real, going so far as to ask me to be his girlfriend before we'd even met. At first, of course, he said all the right things, but he also said a lot of the wrong things, being from Texas. I can't remember exactly what it was, but something he did or said quite early on set off red flags, and flashing red lights, and blaring alarms, and storm sirens, and disorienting strobes. Oh yeah, myself was trying really hard to protect me. But I chose not to listen because I was in an era of staying open to new experiences. Just imagine watching your life from the cockpit of an airplane. The controls are all there, but the navigation system is stuck on autopilot, so you just sit there. After a while, you happen to notice a rocky cliff face in your flight path, and it's getting closer and closer. You know you should do something, maybe bail out or try to figure out the controls, but instead you just watch as the plane speeds you toward a fatal, fiery impact. New experience? Of course. Smart? No. So after about 8 months of long-distance communication, a hastily considered matching tattoo that is now covered, and many flights back and forth at his invitation, I dropped everything in my life and moved to Houston. At first, it was great. His family and friends were great. We would go to the beach, to the lake, to sporting events, to breweries, and road trips. We even got a puppy. But as real life officially settled in and I got a job, little by little, I realized I was in an abusive relationship. In some ways, I suppose I was lucky because it never got physical. But not all abuse is physical. This man was a master narcissist whose supreme talent was emotional and mental manipulation and abuse that was disguised as charm, teasing, and joking. Now, I love a good joke or a sarcastic dig, but it stopped being charming or funny when literally everything I loved or considered a part of me art, theater, liking all 4 seasons, or even just simply being from Illinois, he labeled as being stupid, pathetic, dumb, pointless, or simply wrong. But even back then, in the middle of it, I knew I was in a horrible situation, but I stayed. I stayed for a few reasons. Number 1, circumstance. After some poor financial decisions that he suggested, I couldn't afford to move back home on my own. 2, pride. Moving back would be admitting that I had made a huge mistake. And 3, I believed I deserved it. Many broken shards of myself honestly believed I should be in this situation as punishment for the choices I had made. So I stayed and stayed. I tried brushing it all off, putting on a happy face, even pursuing my own interests as I could, but I was trapped. When I dared to push back and call him on his behavior, he got upset and played the victim, and then it got worse, when he even locked me out of my bedroom and bathroom so I couldn't go to work. But time and again, I was left feeling like I deserved all of it. So eventually I closed in on myself. I would sit alone in my car. I would sob and scream. I dove headlong into what I could control. I published my first novel. I wrote another one. What can I say? I'm productive when I'm upset. But it was July 2012 with an invite to a friend's wedding back here in Illinois that marked the turning point. I flew up by myself and was away from him for an entire weekend. I got to connect with old friends I thought I'd lost and have real conversations about what was happening in my life. Finally, I was able to look at it from the outside perspective of people I loved and trusted. I knew it had to end, but how? Step 1 was truly being honest with myself and accepting that I had made a mistake. Step 2 was harder. I had to humble myself and admit to others that I had made the mistake. Harder still was step 3, actually asking for help. Fortunately, I had help that was willing to come in the form of my parents. Imagine the absolute flood of relief I felt when I didn't hear "I told you so." All I heard was, "Yes, baby girl, we're coming." And thank you, Mom. She's here tonight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for that. Sorry. From there, we made a plan. The planning part was easy. I'm really good at planning. I arranged to take my job remotely, and my parents booked one-way flights to Houston and rented a moving truck for all my things. The real challenge was actually leaving. My heart was already out the door, but I wasn't. And I knew the only way to escape was by not telling him I was leaving. So that day, he went to work as usual. My parents arrived. We moved everything out. But then he showed up. His roommate told him I never liked him. He begged me to stay, said things would be different, better. He said he loved me, needed me. I cried and I sobbed. But when I realized my sorrow was not about him, but about leaving the dog, I knew I had broken the chains he'd used to hold me down. He no longer had power because I had owned my mistake. I had asked for forgiveness, and I had forgiven myself. I was free, and it was my turn to manipulate him. So I could leave, I let him believe I was just going home for Christmas. That alone was why he let me go. And as we drove away, I sobbed some more, but it was with relief. It was that relief that took us 1,000 miles north with my howling cats through a southern Illinois blizzard. And for 2 weeks, from 1,000 miles away, he kept trying, with guilt, with everything. But I stood my ground. And after 2 long weeks, he finally stopped calling and messaging. He finally let go. I know not everyone gets so lucky, but getting out starts with acknowledging that you need help and being willing to ask for and accept it. No one can do it for you until you take that first harrowing step, but it's a step really worth taking. Standing here tonight with more than a decade of hindsight, I still wonder what I was thinking back then. But I can say that it was quite the experience. I certainly learned a valuable lesson, and through it, I became the person I was meant to be. I stayed a daughter, became a much better future wife, became mother to amazing twins, became a true storyteller, but most importantly, through work, ingenuity, and lots of reinvention, I learned how to gather up the broken shards of my former glass self and repurpose the best and brightest pieces to build a stronger, more beautiful mosaic of me. Thank you.